Okay, let's take a look at some tweaking. In this video, we're just going to be moving around existing details, so you don't necessarily have to watch this if you don't want to, or you can kind of fast forward through it and watch my progress. I just thought I'd warn everybody that all we're going to be doing here is moving vertices around. So I'm going to jump around a little bit and just find areas that look like they need help and tweak them out. So notice I'm getting here underneath this panel. Straighten all these up a little bit. Won't worry too much about that. Clean these up here in the side view anyway. And let's take a look out here in perspective. I'd like this to be nice and flowing. Let's find a picture of the back. It should be relatively vertical, and it doesn't look like it is very vertical. So we'll tug things around. Maybe not that so much, but up here we'll pull these out so they'll stand up a little bit further. Just a warning, if you guys haven't yet seen a video where I do nothing but tweak, it's gonna get pretty quiet, because there's not a whole lot to say when I'm just sitting here tweaking. Okay, and that's where that crease is going to end up being as we move down the side of the car. Let's just switch over to object mode. Take a look. Now, you got to be careful here at what you're looking at, because if you let yourself get bogged down in what's happening around the edges, you're never going to be satisfied with what you see. So don't let yourself notice that right now. Just kind of take a look at the bulk of the surface, see if things are lining up. Take a look at your detail. Like, notice we've got a little bit of jagginess taking place in here, so there's a little denting going on. We may be able to, yeah, it looks like we can fix that right here. So there's the root of it. All about checking that detail. And I'm going to start kind of adjusting this to round things out a bit. Come over here to a side view and just start straightening these up. Looks pretty good back there. Okay. So notice I keep checking things in the side view to just see how everything is lining up. It looks like this could be brought down. Okay. It's starting to smooth out pretty nicely overall. A little bit of denting taking place up here, which is a little hard to see. You got to kind of really stare at it for a minute, but you can see that we have a little bit of a valley with this row. It's very, very subtle. Let's grab our move tool and set it back over to normal mode. Just real softly start pulling these out. It's like this one next. It seemed to help a bit. It's not bad at all, really. Now if we start looking around the rest here, there's some interesting things going on with normals in this area that we're going to have to ignore for the time being, because that's not really why we're here. You know, it's really weird, but I find myself closing one eye a lot when I do this, as if I was really sighting down something. It's like that could be tugged out a little bit. I noticed a little bit of denting in our smooth mesh, and this is probably one of the reasons why. Now, this crease is currently nowhere near as tight as I would like it to be, but don't let that bother you just yet. We're going to be adding to that a little bit later. To do that, we're going to be adding some more geometry, though, so that won't be for this video. There's some definite pinching back here we can address, and as soon as we go back there, we can see the cause for it. Let's frame up on the culprit. Okay. Not bad. Not bad at all. Now what I don't want to do is just sit here and tweak this so you end up with like a 4-hour video on tweaking. Actually, we're almost done. Things are already looking a lot better than they did when we started this video. I'm going to create a little more rounding back here as we slope toward the back. Almost a hint of that crease that we're going to be putting in there, so that's good. If we move away and rotate around, and maybe just a little bit breaking out of that plane back here in the back, and you can kind of see where we do it too. It's like right up in here we start to slope upward a little bit, but it's so subtle that I'm not really worried about it. Again, this is one of those things where you could just sit here and nitpick for days on end and never really get anywhere, so you don't want that to happen. I'm going to pull some of these edges out just a little bit. And let's get out of normal mode. Let's go back to world mode. Kind of want this wheel well to stand up a little bit more sharply. So we'll very carefully tug this out just a little bit at a time. Maybe a few more further tweaks that need to be done, but overall it's probably not bad. We do have the wheel well looking like it's sticking out a little bit right there. Let me switch over to that real famous shot. I actually have a different version of that. This guy here. Yeah, we should be slanting inwards when we get down to here, and it looks like we're kind of slanting out. So, make the appropriate adjustment. Which will cause me to want to pull this out further. So it looks like we're actually pulling back closer to our original curve. And sometimes that's par for the course. You learn about your model kind of while you're putting it together. Just whatever you do, whenever you're modeling, whenever you're doing anything in 3D, don't ever be afraid to admit that you've made a mistake. Because you haven't really made a mistake unless you don't fix it. That's some fortune cookie stuff right there, just for you. Alright, now this leads us to probably some very subtle denting in our surface up here that's going to need to be addressed. Again, we have a little bit of this crevice up here that I'm still a tad concerned about. We could probably pull this down a bit and start to bleed it off. It doesn't really seem like it's causing much of a problem in the surface. It's probably just me being paranoid, but, you know. A good, healthy case of paranoia is not always a problem. We'll just go ahead and soften the change in direction a little bit. Kind of help things out. This should also help make that crease around the wheel well more apparent once we get over to it. So that'll be good. Maybe not do that. We'll leave that row alone. Pull these up and over. Now, just remember, I have Control clicked on my Z-axis, so I'm still moving only in XY, as a quick reminder. Okay. Not half bad, and that's probably the bulk of what we're going to be able to tweak out until we get some more of our detail in place. Little more area right in here where it looks like we still have a little bit of denting. I don't want to get too crazy anal retentive about this, but I do want it to look good. I'll switch back over to normal mode for just a minute. Remember those arrow keys. Moving these things around. Yeah, it's not bad. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call this as tweaked as we can get until we start adding in some of that creasing, and then we'll see where we stand from there. So that is going to wrap things up for this video. Thanks a lot.